In hindsight, there's a lot of things that we probably should have done earlier in my research career, and not just me. I don't think I'm the only one at fault, but collectively there's a lot of things we should have done earlier. Now, in the 60s, people took soil testing as gospel. You know, it came from BCRI at Rydalmere, or back as AFL? Yes, AFL in those days at Chester Hill, and everyone believed their soil test results. And then people started to question, how accurate are these soil tests? Sometimes we get some really dodgy advice, and I'm not sure I really believe some of these soil tests. Maybe they're just being driven by fertiliser companies, and I'm not so sure I should believe this advice, because all I get told is, you need more super. I've been putting out super for 20 years, why do I keep needing more super? Or why didn't they tell me I needed lime? And so one of the problems we've had as an industry is that perhaps we haven't integrated everything terribly well. We had lots of independent researchers. One of the ironies of the cuts that we're currently having around Australian agriculture at state agency level, CSIRO, universities, is there's actually more teamwork. One of the things I've noticed over the last 5 years is that there's a whole lot more collaboration between states and agencies. And it's actually had a good impact. And I'll give you an example of that good impact, but it makes me angry and upset that we didn't do this a generation ago. Now, if a farmer gets a soil test, how does he know it's any good? Who does he trust? Who does he believe? One of the things that we've developed recently is accreditation processes. And why we didn't do this a generation ago just astounds me. But I was adopted by two senior researchers who were outside New South Wales DPI when I first started. One was Doug Reuter from CSIRO, and he spent time in Sardie. The other was Ken Peveril from the Victorian Department of Ag. Now, everybody would have heard of Reuter and Robinson, the big plant nutrition Bible, and Peveril et al. Was the soil testing Bible. Those two senior men had a vision for soil testing and soil fertility in Australia. They wanted a chain of command, or an accreditation procedure, that took us all the way through soil sampling in the paddock, through to fertiliser advice. And they wanted accreditation procedures, and that's now finally coming to pass. So, for example, soil sampling is accredited through FertCare, through Fertiliser Australia, the fertiliser industry. Soil testing, the lab work, is now accredited through ASPAC, the Australasian, it is now, Soil and Plant Association or Council. Soil test interpretation is now managed through the Better Fertiliser Decision database. That's the Australian repository of soil test calibrations. The advice that people give, that's now accredited through FertCare. So that if people are giving advice, it has to be consistent with those principles that are accredited by FertCare. And then finally, fertiliser application. Is your fertiliser spreader accredited through FertCare? For example, the bout width, the quantity of material spread, all of that can be tested and accredited. So over the last 30 years, we've gradually got ourselves to the point where we can accredit the soil test, the soil sampling I should say, the soil testing, the soil test calibration, the fertiliser advice that's given and how it's spread. So we've finally developed an industry where the advice is traceable, defensible, and more objective, regardless of who gives you that advice. And I think it's a wonderful irony of the downscaling of agricultural research and advice in Australia that has given us the opportunity to provide national accreditation procedures, because those of us who are left have had a better degree of collaboration and cooperation.